You grew up in a world that kept telling you the same thing over and over again. Be strong, be independent, don't complain, handle everything on your own. No one ever explained the price hidden behind that mindset. No one warned you that one day you would wake up with a sense of inner emptiness that cannot be filled by work, relationships, or achievements. You believed that if you did everything right, if you endured, if you kept your composure, if you never asked for help, everything would eventually fall into place. But something went wrong, and today you are beginning to realize it. Generation X is not just people born between certain years. It is a generation shaped by psychological fracture. You found yourself caught between two worlds. The old one, where discipline, hierarchy, and emotional suppression were valued, and the new one, where suddenly it became acceptable to talk about feelings, vulnerability, and personal boundaries. But no one gave you instructions on how to move from one world to the other. You were taught how to survive, but never how to live. There is a dangerous myth that has damaged the inner world of millions of people from Generation X. The myth that emotional restraint equals maturity, that silence is strength, that if you don't show pain, it doesn't exist. This myth became deeply embedded in culture, family, and upbringing. It was passed down not through words, but through behavior. You watched adults avoid talking about feelings. You saw problems resolved either through aggression or complete avoidance, and you absorbed this as normal. Why do you think people from your generation find it so difficult to talk about what they feel? Why do words get stuck in the throat, while irritation, coldness, or irony come out instead? Psychologists explain this through the phenomenon of emotional suppression. It is a psychological defense mechanism in which a person consciously or unconsciously blocks emotional experiences to avoid pain, shame, or vulnerability. In scientific terms, this is associated with chronic activation of the amygdala, the brain region responsible for fear and threat, combined with reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for conscious emotional processing. Put simply, your brain learned to treat emotions as danger. It's like touching a hot stove once and deciding never to enter the kitchen again. It feels safer, but living like that is impossible. People from Generation X often appear outwardly composed, rational, and ironic. They know how to keep their distance. They rarely show weakness, but inside them lives constant tension. This tension is known as alexithymia, a condition in which a person struggles to recognize and name their emotions. From a scientific perspective, alexithymia is linked to disrupted communication between the limbic system and the brain's language centers. The emotion exists, but the words for it do not. In very simple terms, it's as if music is constantly playing inside you, but you don't know the names of the notes. You hear the noise, you feel the pressure, but you don't understand what is actually happening. And here, it's important to pause, because you may have spent your entire life thinking that something was wrong with you, that you are cold, detached, or less emotional than others. But the truth is, you are not broken. You are adapted to the conditions in which you grew up. You survived, and that alone speaks to your strength. People from your generation experienced a massive loss of faith in institutions. You watched ideals collapse. Careers fall apart. Families break down. Entire states lose their meaning. You understood earlier than others that stability is an illusion. That is why hyper-responsibility developed within you. You learned to rely only on yourself. In psychology, this is called hyper-control, a constant need to keep everything under strict control because trust in the world was once shattered. On a simple level, it's like a person driving a car with their foot hovering over the brake pedal the entire time, even on an empty road. They cannot relax because they don't truly believe the danger is gone. But hyper-control comes at a cost. It drains you. It leaves no room for spontaneity, intimacy, or sincerity. That is why relationships often become a source of anxiety rather than support for people from Generation X. You crave closeness, but fear dependence. You want to be understood, but you don't know how to explain what's happening inside you. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." These words describe the inner world of your generation with striking precision. You lived on autopilot for years, following scripts you were never fully aware of. But now, A new stage is beginning. Awareness is the first step, and it is always painful, because in this moment, you realize how many years you spent ignoring yourself, how many decisions you made not because you wanted to, but because you felt you had to. This brings frustration, anger, and sometimes even a quiet grief for the version of yourself that never became real, and that is normal. What matters here is not getting stuck in self-blame. You did not choose the conditions that shaped your psyche, but you can choose what to do with them now. The next stage is the restoration of emotional sensitivity. From a scientific standpoint, this is the process of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to restructure neural connections through new experience. Simply put, the brain can be retrained. You can learn to feel again, to recognize, to express, slowly, without pressure, without the demand to be like everyone else. It's like a numb limb. If you haven't felt it for a long time, pain returns first, then warmth, then control. You cannot skip the stages, but every step brings you closer back to yourself, and this is where your real strength is hidden. People from Generation X possess a depth that many others lack. You can tolerate complexity. You can see contradictions. You don't believe in simple answers. And when you combine that depth with awareness, you become truly free. Viktor Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." You are already standing at that point. You don't have to rewrite the past, but you can rewrite your relationship to it. The ending is both simple and difficult. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are a person who carried the weight of silence for far too long. And the moment you allow yourself to see this without shame, without justification, without masks, you will feel not vulnerability, but strength. Because true adulthood begins not when you stop feeling, but when you stop running from it.